Here we are, just barely past the middle of October, and outdoors it pretty much looks like full on winter, which means that I've had to put last week's sermon about being thankful and not grumbling into practice a little more quickly than I would have liked. It's always tough when preachers are forced to eat their own words. Well, today I'm going to share some thoughts that I've entitled Healthy Appetites and Right Desires. Healthy Appetites and Right Desires. And I'm basing this on the first epistle of Peter, chapter 2, verses 1 to 10. Where we discover, I think, that desiring the best things in life does not come automatically. That important lesson was wonderfully expressed in Dr. Seuss's enlightening children's book, Green Eggs and Ham. I do not like green eggs and ham. I do not like them, Sam I am. You do not like them? So you say. Try them, and you may. Try them, and you may, I say. Sam, if you will let me be, I will try them, you will see. Say, I like green eggs and ham. I do. I like them, Sam I am. Have you ever noticed that it's always people from other cultures who have weird gastronomical desires? An interesting experience is to walk up and down the aisles of an ethnic supermarket in a larger city. Apart from hearing unfamiliar languages, one's nostrils and sight are assaulted by strange aromas and sights that beg the question, do people actually eat that? So what determines if you like something? Do you have to be, say, born in Mexico to enjoy eating beans with every meal? Does coming from certain parts of Asia automatically mean that you want to dump fish sauce all over your food like North Americans use ketchup? At first exposure, there are many things in life that look unappealing, but we miss out on good things in life if we make the mistake of limiting our desires to first impressions. We had a rule with our children that they had to taste a bite or two of every food that was placed in front of them, particularly if we were in someone else's house. An amazing thing happens with our taste. After we try a new food a couple of times, we often end up liking it, even if we thought we wouldn't. We call that acquired taste. And many of the best things in life, including that all-important morning cup of coffee, are an acquired taste. In writing the letter we know as First Peter, the Apostle Peter drew attention to taste as a key element to enjoying a relationship with God. It can sound strange to treat God as an acquired taste, but I think our personal experience, as well as our observation of others, confirms that to be an accurate description. In 1 Peter 2, 1 to 10, the section we'll look at, Peter's references to rejecting God and then experiencing Jesus as a stumbling stone highlight the fact that people don't come with an instinctive appetite for a relationship with God, much less a passionate desire to connect with God. And Peter was all about passion. From attempting to walk on water to boldly claiming that he was ready to die with Jesus, and even more boldly denying 3 times that he knew Jesus, Peter engaged life with passion. Unfortunately, misguided passion had previously gotten Peter into trouble, but his passion for Jesus refocused his life. Peter was convinced that life only improves if we have a passionate desire for Jesus. Peter reminds us that passionate connection develops when we cultivate particular tastes. As we read 1 Peter 2:1-10, take note of the interaction between taste and passion or desire. Passion/desire. This is what he wrote. Therefore, rid yourselves of all malice and all deceit, hypocrisy, envy, and slander of every kind. Like newborn babies, crave pure spiritual milk, so that by it you may grow up in your salvation, now that you have tasted that the Lord is good. As you come to him, the living stone, rejected by humans but chosen by God and precious to him, you also, like living stones, are being built into a spiritual house to be a holy priesthood, offering spiritual sacrifices acceptable to God through Jesus Christ. For in Scripture it says, "See, I lay a stone in Zion, a chosen and precious cornerstone, and the one who trusts in him will never be put to shame. Now to you who believe this stone is precious, but to those who do not believe, the stone the builders rejected has become the cornerstone, and a stone that causes people to stumble, and a rock that makes them fall. They stumble because they disobey the message, which is also what they were destined for. But you are a chosen people, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, God's special possession, that you may declare the praises of him who called you out of darkness into his wonderful light. Once you were not a people, but now you are the people of God. Once you had not received mercy, but now you have received mercy." With a compelling metaphor, Peter challenged his readers to discover a passionate desire for Jesus, to find out what Jesus tastes like. Or, in his own words, like newborn babies, crave pure spiritual milk so that by it you may grow up in your salvation, now that you have tasted that the Lord is good. This metaphor reminds me of a childhood experience. At the time, my parents had 4 cows which they milked by hand in the barn. The barn was not only home to the cows, but also to half a dozen or so cats, which gathered around a large bowl as soon as they heard the sound of milking. Before the milk was taken to the house to be run through a cream separating machine, that bowl got filled with warm, fresh milk. The challenge was to get the milk into the bowl and not all over the floor, because the cats were practically crawling into the bowl as the milk was poured, and they ended up having their heads doused in milk, which they didn't appear to mind at all. That bowl never needed to get washed because the cat's passion for milk resulted in them licking it clean every time. Peter was a fisherman, and I don't know if he knew much about milking cows, but the passion he had for Jesus was not unlike the intensity with which those barn cats consumed their milk. We all understand that there is a direct connection between taste and desire. When we've tasted something we like, we desire more. The puzzling question is, how do we taste Jesus? How do we develop a desire for Jesus that makes us want more? It's fair to say that throughout the New Testament, tasting Jesus means discovering truths that make life work. The Bible is very clear that we can't separate Jesus from the message he proclaimed. Jesus was called the Word because he himself was the message. Jesus also self-identified himself as the way, the truth, and the life. In calling himself the truth and the life, Jesus indicated that the message he represented produced the kind of life people desired. A central promise to Jesus' message was that he had come to give life in abundance. For his part, Peter had personally tasted the truth that Jesus' life/message produced exactly the life-changing results that he desired. He was no longer the misdirected, impulsive person he had once been, but had gained a clear direction for where life was taking him. That focused direction for life which Peter gained through passionately desiring to know Jesus contrasted sharply with the list of negative desires this section begins. Those negative desires, malice, desire, hypocrisy, envy, and slander, I think describe the personal negative struggles Peter and his fellow disciples experienced prior to tasting Jesus. Malice. Malice is the desire to have other people experience bad things. I wonder, had Peter echoed the desires of his fellow disciples, James and John, the time they wanted to call down fire from heaven on a Samaritan village simply because they didn't welcome Jesus? Deceit. Deceit is the desire to get something for nothing. Maybe Peter was remembering the time James and John asked to get a preferred place at Jesus' right hand in his kingdom. Hypocrisy. Hypocrisy is the desire to look better on the outside than we know we are on the inside. Peter will never have forgotten his 3 denials of knowing Jesus after boldly proclaiming that he would die with him. Envy. Envy is the desire to have what other people have. There are many things in life that we would never want if other people didn't have them. Slander. Slander comes from the desire of being seen to be better than other people. It's always easier to point out other people's faults and not our own. None of us want to be known for passionate, negative desires. And it's not hard to see how a passion for knowing Jesus will transform those desires. There's a cautionary note in this we can't afford to miss. We can't fully taste Jesus in isolation from other people. It's only in the context of others that we experience the impact Jesus makes on our lives. We live in an individualistic society that celebrates personal achievement, but God's intent is always for people to live out their desires in community. Peter illustrated this interconnectivity with the wonderful metaphor of a house built using living stones. One stone by itself can't become a house. But many stones put together by a master builder become a solid spiritual house. Too often we miss out on life's potential because our independent streaks keep us from allowing our lives to be intertwined with others. Even worse, random stones laying around can be a nuisance, but when they are joined with others, they have the potential to form wonderful, enduring structures. Like Peter, the more we taste that following Jesus turns us into the kind of people we want to be, the deeper grows our desire to want more. Just like we don't know we will, just like we don't know that we will like green eggs and ham until we try it, we have to taste Jesus in order to desire what he offers. On the flip side, the deterrent to embracing Jesus is our doubt that his guidance works. I am convinced that if we encounter a situation where it appears that Jesus' life/instruction suppresses our lives, we have failed to understand Jesus. Because never forget that Jesus promised to give life in abundance.